1, 2, 3, go. Good evening, viewers, and thank you for joining us for week 17 of our Can You Fix Nigeria Challenge. Tonight, I have with me Mr. Abolaji Idowu. Abolaji is the chief consultant at Restra Consulting in Dubai, and he's also the chief exec at Berrygate Ventures here in the UK, or in the UK. Mr. Abolaji, it's good to have you tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's good to be here.
All right. It's been a while, and it's very good to catch up with you, actually. Tonight we're going to be speaking on the subject of political organization in Nigeria. I'm conversant that maybe you've had a chance to follow this series as we have gone, and I'm sure you've seen a few of the videos as well. Yeah. So tonight we're talking about political organization in particular, and I wanted to put you on the spot with a few questions, actually. Please feel free. They're not right or wrong answers, but I just wanted to get your feedback on some of these things. The very first question I'm going to put to you tonight is that if you look at Nigeria today, we practice the presidential system of government, which is similar to what the US does. Whereas if you look at the First Republic, we practice the parliamentary system like UK does. So if you were to pick between those two systems, what would be your feedback? What would you recommend and why?
Okay, so first, you jumped into the question. So let me first thank you for this opportunity. Okay. And let me say, this is a fantastic thing that you're doing, because we all complain about, we're all Nigerians, we all complain about Nigeria. We know what is not working, but once it's time to start saying, okay, what will work? Everybody, you sit down even in a beer parlor in Nigeria, everybody can articulate what is not working. So it's good that we are starting to come together and start to articulate how will it work, and not only what is not working, what is broken and what needs to be fixed. So this is a good, really good forum. And it's interesting you asked me this question, because that's actually what I was going to discuss tonight.
Fantastic.
Because I don't understand. Okay. I'm yet to really look at what made Nigeria go into the presidential system. And this is not just a Nigeria problem. In my opinion, there is no single African country that should be practicing the presidential system. It's simple, and my reasons are very scientific. There is nothing emotional about it. So number one, how much does the presidential system cost? Let's look at, I'm an accountant. Let's look at numbers.
Okay.
It cost, the last election in Nigeria, officially, this is official numbers. This is not, we've not added all the, you know what our people actually
brown envelopes.
Official numbers. Exactly. Officially cost $625 million.
No way. $625 million.
Yes, officially. $625 million. That's what the last election cost.
Wow.
Exactly. Well, just go on Google, type it in, you'll see that. And this is heartbreaking for a poor country. Now, yes, I don't know, I haven't watched all the episodes we've had, but I think the first thing we need to understand as Nigerians, fundamentally, and I hope Nigerians are beginning to come to that, is we are a poor country.
A poor country. I agree.
We are not in any way completely a rich country.
Yes, I agree with you completely on that.
And I've heard people talk about, oh, we have this, we have that. And I said, okay, let me paint a quick scenario. If a man makes 10 million a year and he has one wife and one child, and another man makes 10 million a year and he has 15 wives and 100 children, who is richer?
The guy who makes 1 million, yes.
So that's a scenario. We are 200 million people. We make, our GDP is about the GDP of UAE with 2.5 million people. We are a poor country.
We are.
And when you are a poor country and you're struggling for things like infrastructure, basic infrastructure, we're not talking anything, basic infrastructure. We're talking roads, you're talking schools, you're talking hospitals. I'm not talking about neuroscience. No, 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 no.
No, no, no.
Hospitals
Basic
to treat
things.
malaria.
Mm.
Basic things. We're not talking about bullet trains. We're talking about normal, almost locomotive. So if we're talking about low-cost airlines, you're not even talking about doing. So if we can't do those things well, how can we, in God's name, spend 600 million on an election?
Yeah, but Mr. Bolaji,
On an election that only lasts 4 years.
But Bolaji, see, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you 100%. But there was a reason why we went to this presidential system in the first place. I mean, in the First Republic, we were saying that the prime minister was not strong enough. He was not powerful enough. We wanted somebody who could take charge because we were a difficult country. This is why we went to this presidential system. Is there not something to be said for that? Do you agree with that reasoning at all? I mean, let's hear from you.
Why are you looking for strong individuals?
Well, because they said we had a coup and we had this civil war and all of that, and the feeling was that we failed in the First Republic because the center was not strong enough. The regions were stronger than the federal.
So you and I have lived.
I agree with them, but this was the reason. Yes.
No. You and I have lived in the UK.
Yeah.
The UK is a world power.
It is. Yes.
They use a parliamentary system.
Correct.
Now, let's make it easy. The UK can call for a snap election tomorrow. They can call for a snap election within 2 weeks, and it will happen.
Correct. Absolutely.
And just let's even remove the cost of that, because a parliamentary system, the elections are it's local. So you're not
local. Yeah.
Like it's local. A Buhari would only go and campaign in Daura. He doesn't need to go anywhere else. So it's easy. And then you get to whoever has the most number of seats is the party that eventually governs. The leader of that party becomes the prime minister.
Prime minister.
Right? Yeah. Now, you can call him president, whatever you call him. He's the leader, right? And when he wants to pick his cabinet, he picks his cabinet from the elected official.
Correct. So you're saving a lot of costs. You're not duplicating
a lot of costs.
Yeah.
You don't have a upper house, lower this. I mean, every state has one house doing all sorts of things. So you remove all that. Okay. But you asked me what makes Boris Johnson a weaker person than Muhammadu Buhari. It doesn't. People came up with that excuse. It's an excuse.
Okay, so let me, because I have quite a lot of questions to ask you, so let me be taking my time. Let me follow up on what you have just said now then. So basically, so I get it that for you, we should have stuck with the parliament because it means, our justification was not valid, and this new presidential system is so much more expensive. Even in the US, we can see that to run the presidential system in the US, president will cost you $1 billion easily. Easily. So I can relate to what you're saying. But let me come to the second question. Second question, if we have had multi-party political organizations in Nigeria, so if you look at the Second Republic, we had NPN, UPN, GNPP, MPP, PRP, and NAP, 6 parties. And all 6 parties were to some extent viable. Today, we have more of a 2-party. We have 1,001 parties, but only 2 seems viable. If you were to make a recommendation to us, would you be going for a 2-party system or a multi-party system? Please tell us and tell us why.
It's not relevant.
Okay.
It's also not relevant.
Okay.
The UK has more than 2 parties.
Do they?
Yes.
They do have Leave Dems.
When you go on election days, that is when you hear that they'll be calling names you've never heard in your life.
Oh, I see.
And why is that important? Each area has a set of demands, a set of things that they hold dear to them. And a party may not represent that.
Sense that need. Okay, clear. Okay.
Let's pick Nigeria for an example. I'm not speaking for or against this, but
no, we shouldn't. Actually, it was one of the things we said at the beginning of this. We will try not to be partisan or abusive or anything.
Exactly.
To see, what the issues are. Exactly. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
So you pick a Zamfara, for example.
Okay.
This is a state that has enacted Sharia law, right?
Okay.
The party that represents them might be PDP or APC. That doesn't really, I'm not supporting what they've done, but it may not necessarily represent the values that Zamfara people hold dear.
I see. Okay. Fair enough.
There is no reason why they can't have their own party, right? And they have their elected officials that goes to sit in the parliament that represents what they believe in.
What the value system of the local people
is.
Okay.
So if we say a two-party system or a three-party system, we have to understand something. America is where America is today. Where in reality, we may be 400 years behind in terms of actual dates, but in development and everything, we're probably 800, 900 years behind. And you can't just copy what they've done because you haven't.
You cannot just copy Barberton. I see. But Mr. Bolaji, is it not, but if we have, because what I'm picking from what you're saying is that we're actually better off having a multi-party system. But is that not more expensive?
No, it's not. Why is it expensive? Let's pick an example. You have a party that is called People's Dominion Party, right?
Okay.
It wins seats in Lagos State.
Okay.
So it's the controlling seats in Lagos State. And maybe it also won Oyo State.
Okay.
So by the time you get to the parliament, you may not have a single party that is the largest.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you that question. So it's good that you are preempting.
And this is where multi-party system is absolutely fantastic. Because what you do is that you have to bargain with another party
and do
to govern. And everybody, I don't want to go into this issue of restructuring or no restructuring because you've dealt with it. But let's assume that what Lagos State wants or what Southwest wants or whatever is a particular need, and your party needs to join with their party to govern, then you have to come and say, look, both of us have to agree. This is what I want, this is what I want. If we don't agree, we can't form a government.
Yeah, but Mr. Bolaji, let me stop you there though. Because this problem that you're talking about, we see it around the world now, don't we? If you look at Israel, in the last 1.5 years, Israel has had 4 elections, okay? Yes. And why are they doing that? Because they have multiple parties. The Netanyahu guy cannot form government unless Avram Lieberman supports him. Do you see what I mean? Because Lieberman doesn't support him because he wants the traditional Jews to go and serve as soldiers. Now, there's no majority in the House, so any government that they form is collapsing. So that will also create its own level of instability, can't it?
That is very, very true. And Israel is a good and a bad example because unfortunately, Israel is the epicenter of foreign policy for most countries.
Yes.
And a lot of things that play in Israel are not playing as domestic. They're playing
not
because
local
of the
issues. I see.
The pool of foreign parties. So it's really, really difficult. It's a good example, but it's a bad example.
It's a bad example as well. Okay. I see your point. Let me come to the next question then. I understand that in places like Texas, for example, their parliament is not a permanent parliament. So, for example, they maybe sit only 5 times a year. The parliamentarians continue to do their work, and then they call them in only when you need to deliberate things, to do new legislation. Is there a place for Nigeria, for example, to have a part-time parliament rather than a full-time dedicated people sitting all the time? What are your opinions? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's that there is a place. That is standard what all African countries should have. We don't have the money to pay these guys full time. Sorry, we don't have the money to pay these guys full time. Let's just be, look, as I said to you, if I pull up in your driveway tomorrow with a Rolls Royce Phantom, what's the first question you're going to ask me?
How can you afford it, man? This is the first thing.
What do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
How much do you make?
Yeah.
And that's the point. Why do we pull up with these systems and it's clear that we really cannot afford it? So we can't afford. They are brilliant Nigerians and Africans till tomorrow that would accept to be parliamentarians without being paid.
For sure, for sure. Yeah.
Brilliant. They will take the role because it's about laws, and they will take the, now you can pay all the expenses of flying to Abuja and this and that, but some of them will even do it free because of what they want to go. So why are we paying people so much to do next to nothing?
Okay.
So I believe that in Africa, we should be saying these roles are part-time. Yes.
Okay. Now let me come to the next question. And on this one, I want to, do we need a new constitution? Let me tell you where I'm coming from with this one. Recently, I don't know whether you know lawyer Wole Olanipekun San, senior advocate of Nigeria, one of the top lawyers in Nigeria at the moment. And I was reading an article that he made sometimes last week or the week before. And he was talking about how the current constitution that we're using was drafted under the Abacha regime. And it was done by only 47 people. Correct. And his exact number was that there were only 47 people in that old team. Okay. Now, and for him, he felt that number is too small to represent the views of Nigerians, that we should actually need to sit down as a country and write a proper constitution. Do you understand? So now I read that, and I have to be honest, I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I don't know all the details, but I seem to recall that Nigeria has written so many constitutions. There were many constitutions before we got to independence. But after independence, we've written at least the Independence Constitution. We had another constitution in 1979. We had a constitution in 1988. We had a constitution under Abacha. So what is this problem about constitution? Why is it that we can't seem to get it right? At least Nigeria must have had at least 10 to 12 constitutions since amalgamation. So why can't we get this constitution issue right?
Well, again, we've copied the Americans. Remember, the UK has no constitution. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
We have copied the Americans
again.
And the Americans are paying the price today. The Constitution is not a Bible. It was written by men.
Yes.
Things change. Technologies, people, values, systems, our beliefs, things change. You and I have been consultants, right?
Yeah.
You go into a company that was doing extremely well, but you're not going to say, because you're doing well, we're not going to do another 5-year strategy. You're going to do another 5-year strategy.
Okay.
You're probably going to look at the operating model. Every company, every successful company has probably gone through God knows how many changes in their operating model.
I see.
Exactly. So there is. I hear the Americans talk about our founding fathers. Now that's great, but the reality of their founding fathers then and the problems they faced, some of those things have changed.
They're not the same. Okay, I see.
They're not the same. People talk about, I'm sorry to go into this, but when people talk about our Second Amendment rights, people rights to bear arms. Yes, maybe the people that bore arms then were more sensible than people going around and shooting people for nothing. So you have to have a constitution that protects other people and say, look,
today.
Exactly. And that's the same thing. Look, even if we had a constitution written by Awolowo and the others and it was perfect, it would have been perfect in 1960s. Things have changed now. Nigerians are more divided on ethnic lines than they've ever been.
I see.
Nigerians are more divided on religious lines than they've ever been. I went to what we call the pride of Nigeria then, the unity schools.
Unity schools, federal government colleges.
Exactly. I had friends that were Igbos, there were Hausas, there were Fulanis, there were Ijaws, there were everything.
Correct.
We didn't know the difference. We were friends and we've remained friends till today.
The rich came to those schools, the poor came to those schools. I went to a federal government college school as well. We had Abu Salam's daughter in my school, David Mark's daughter in my school. They were all there.
We had Obasanjo's child in my school.
Yeah, and we were all poor people with them there. It didn't matter. It was the same thing. Either the rich or the poor, we were in the same schools. But please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Things are evolving, and our constitution, either it was right or wrong, and I'll come back to it again, has to evolve. So that's number one. But let's assume that. But let's even take the constitution that we use today. That constitution is fundamentally flawed. Because it's like you have, there might be 48 perfect people. I'm not even going to comment on the 48 people that wrote it. But 48 people cannot represent 200 million.
1 million, yeah. I see.
And you've got to have a constitution where people, no matter if a member of your family is, we've seen families where everybody's a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
And the last one decides they want to go and be a DJ. They're still a member of your family.
Whether you like it or not, yeah.
Whether you like it or not, you have to bring everybody to the table and say, how do we, because constitution is not just about, it's not military. It's not how do I rule you. How do we live together?
How do we live together? I see.
Under what rules do we all accept to live together?
See, I think actually this is, for me, a very profound statement that you have just made there. That the Constitution is not about the governed versus the people who are being, versus the governors, the people who are governing us versus us who are being governed. No, it is about all of us pulling together. We are accepting that we want these people to rule us. It's got to be that way.
And under what laws, what do we agree?
Yeah, I see.
And if we can't agree, we can't have it's not about 48 people or 100 people deciding this is how we think Nigeria should be. It won't work.
I see. It's a very valid point. No, at this point, Mr. Abolaji, please just give me a sec. Let me recap what we have said, what I've learned so far from what we have discussed so far. So we talked about the presidential versus parliamentary system. And one key thing that you mentioned there is that this presidential system that we have is a bit too expensive for us. It's too expensive for us. We need to look into that. So that was number one. Number two, we talked about whether we should go two-party systems or multi-party. And what you were saying is that for us to have adequate representation, we need to be open to multi-parties so that multi-parties can represent people in their local areas. Then number three, we talked about whether we should go full-time or temporary in terms of our parliamentarians. You were saying that actually because it's so expensive, not only Nigerian, all African states should be considering whether we should have a temporary parliament. And now the next one that we've just talked about is the Constitution. And you're saying in terms of the Constitution, we need to agree the terms under which we, the governed, will be governed by the others who are governing us. So thank you so much. I've picked so much from what we have said now. But let me now try and put you on the spot. Two key questions I'm going to ask you. You know, the last election, before we elected President Buhari in the last election, one of the things that came out was that there were a lot of young people who were agitating that we should have young people in party. And I think as a result of that, there was a bill that was presented, not too young to run. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Now, I want to ask you, does it matter whether it's the young or the old that rule us? And now, let me tell you why I'm asking this question, because it will help you to frame it. See, I know we copy a lot from the Americans, but if you look at the last US election, whether it's the President Donald Trump or President Biden, these guys are 78, 77, whatever. Do you understand? You go into Angela Merkel is what, close to 70? She must be close to 70. Boris Johnson is in his 60s. So my question to you is that, does Nigeria really need young people to run? Or is it imperative that young people need to take over the mantle of leadership in Nigeria? Or are we just lacking the right people? Is it an age thing, or we're lacking the right people? Please let me know what you think about this.
The age thing is irrelevant, let's be honest. If you're governed so well by a 100-year-old man that was doing a great job, you wouldn't care.
Okay.
So I know people, the reason why there's a lot of young agitation sometimes is that the young people also want to eat in the national cake. You know, so
say that. This is terrible.
No, because if you get into a plane or you get into your GP, and what you care about is how skillful this doctor is, how skillful this surgeon is, how skillful this pilot is. You really don't care about his age.
By his age, okay, fantastic.
So if we start to look at governance, I keep saying one of my best leaders has to be the ruler of Dubai. Nobody cares how old he is. Okay, he's 70, but people are seeing what he's delivering.
Correct.
So it's not about age, but it becomes about age, about ethnicity, about religion. When it's not about result, I'm like, I also want to, our people also have to eat. But the moment it's performance, age and ethnicity becomes irrelevant.
It will become irrelevant. So basically, you're saying to me that this agitation for age is only because the current crop of leadership doesn't seem to be scratching it.
Yes, it's simple. I can't remember anybody. I mean, you have told me how old Boris Johnson is. I didn't even know his age. Who cared? I didn't know how old Angela Merkel is. I've never asked that question. So the reason why we continually talk about age in Africa is two things. One, we've seen rulers who have been in government for 30 years.
30 years.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And then we've seen people who have come into government in Nigeria that because they can't answer economic questions, they can't answer technological questions, we think it's because of age. Age is not the reason.
I see. Okay. So it's not an age thing.
Donald Trump was 70-something. Joe Biden is 70-something. Right? And to be fair, nobody, remove all the problems around Donald Trump, nobody would say Donald Trump had less energy than Barack Obama was in his 50s.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
He had energy.
He had good energy. Yeah.
Dr. Fauci, believe it or not, is close to 80. Dr. Fauci is in his late 70s. Nobody's asking questions. He is the expert for diseases. So he has to be there. Nobody's saying, no, we need a younger Dr. Fauci.
I see.
So it's not about age. If we have a performing government, nobody will care about their age.
Okay. I get the point. Let me ask you the second question then. Okay, so I recently had a discussion with a Ghanaian friend of mine, okay? And this guy was telling me something. He doesn't believe actually in democracy much. And I'll tell you why he said this to me. I'm going to put you on the spot, I'm sorry. He said, and he says to me, look, democracy is not working, not even in the US or in the UK. He said, think about the UK has been trying to make the decision on the 4th runway at Heathrow for close to 40 years. Whereas in that time, Qatar or UAE have built 3 or 4 or 5 runways because some guy wakes up in the morning and says, I want the runway, go and fix it, that's it. You understand? Now, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but is there something to be said for this, i.e., is it mandatory that we must do democracy, or is democracy the issue, or is it good governance? What's your view on this?
So my views are very open. I remember a few years ago when I was doing my MBA, and this was, I think we're doing managerial economics, and the professor raised something, and I raised up mine. I said, I don't believe in democracy. And the whole class went, And I said, it
Don't say
doesn't
this
work.
Oh my God.
No. And I'll back it up. It doesn't work for developing countries. I didn't say it doesn't work for Africa. It doesn't work in the period you are trying to develop.
Wow.
It doesn't work. It doesn't. When a plane is taking off, it needs full power. The captain is in charge. He's not even talking to the air hostess until it starts to cruise. There is a point where, listen, all the things we have discussed today and you had discussed earlier in your program, they are not things that democracy can deliver.
Oh, wow, gee. Wow.
Let me explain.
Okay.
So let me explain this to you. If somebody decides that, okay, I asked the question, I said, which is the most commercial road in Nigeria? This was in the class.
Lagos
Ibadan is. And a lot of people said, why? I said, most of your goods coming through Apapa. Lagos Ibadan is how they must get out into other states, considering that our rails and all that not working, right?
It's not working. Okay.
Now that road, and I'm sorry to.
It's not working yet.
I said, yes, yet. Okay. That road, you've lived in the UK. That road should be like the M25. You should not allow any gatherings. There should be any churches or factories or whatever should be set back at least 10 kilometers from that road. Because that road should probably be a 20-lane road, taking people and taking cargo out. It is an economic decision that cannot be made in a democratic situation. Because people will say, no, I want my factory there, or I want my church there, or I want my mosque there. The reason why we're seeing rapid growth in Asia and rapid growth in the Middle East is because right now they are in development, and one vision, somebody can make that call quickly.
Very quickly.
I live in the UK.
Yeah.
It is impossible to make a decision.
I mean, Mr. Bolaji, I agree with you on this. I mean, I was in Qatar. Obviously, you know that Qatar was in a lockdown with all the other Arab states. Before that problem happened, Qatar was importing all their food from Saudi Arabia. The decision was taken immediately to do two things. First, they needed milk. Do you know what they did? They sent a plane to Australia, and a plane, Hercules C-130, and imported all the cows they needed and set up their own cow dairy factory overnight. That was what they did. You know,
can you imagine?
The deep sea port. They had a place called Doha Port before. They needed to build Ahmad Port. They took the decision overnight once that lockdown started, and they built the port. It didn't go to parliament. We didn't have any discussion of. So I can relate to what you're saying, actually, that for us to take quick decisions sometimes, we need to trust the guy who is there and just let him get on with the work. These ideas.
However, Africa has been plagued with bad strong men for years. So it's also a difficult call.
It's a catch-22.
Nigeria was under military for so long. The Abachas, the Babangidas, they could have done something. They could have done a lot more when they had sole power. They didn't. You from Angola to different countries, we've seen people have been there for 30, 35, 40 years that did nothing. So again,
one could lose that argument also. I mean, you could easily get into a bad dictatorship.
Correct. You could get into bad dictatorship. So the question is, for me, if someone asks me, what do I think is the solution? I would say, when we go into a client as consultants, and you want to draw you look at the problem and say, look, we're going to design a new operating model, and we're going to close our eyes to whatever you have today. So we draw a target operating model. When we finish that, we then look at what they have and
look at what he has.
How do you migrate? Or do you just break the whole thing down and impose your new target operating model?
Correct.
And that's what we need to do first. We shouldn't try to migrate to anything new. Let's sit down first. Let BAU carry on as it is and say, what's the best system? Forget what we're doing today. When we have that system, we will then talk about the migration process.
How to
because
migrate.
the problem,
so basically,
that migration is the difficult part.
Is the difficult part. So basically, you're saying we should have a clean sheet of paper and rewrite the rules, all the rules, and then see how we can fit things into that new rule set.
Yes. And sometimes, you might realize that you cannot migrate. Right?
That's what I was going to say. That's the problem.
No. Sometimes you might realize that you might not migrate. And some countries, Ghana has tried to do it with Rawlings. When they come in, the military come in, they suspend everything. You have to do.
Yeah.
And then they just take this new one and impose it on
you. But that didn't work either. It didn't work either, right?
Well, you see, that again, the way you can do it is to say, if the only way it can work is the military not imposing their own ideas. It's for us, as we are talking now, to say, forget what we have, what will work? What is the ideal we would like to see? Draw that. We can have arguments till tomorrow how to migrate. Some people would say, no, this migration is going to cost time and money. But let's assume, hypothetical scenario, right? Let's assume the military comes back. Suspend the constitution. Suspend everything we know today. This is just hypothetical, right?
Hypothetical.
Then they take that thing that you have designed, that you say is your ideal, and they impose your ideal, not theirs.
Yeah.
So the migration is the problem. We both know that. But I think the first step, before we even talk about terrible or how difficult that migration can be, the first step is let's even draw what we would like to have.
See as the ideal. Okay, good. I get you. I get the question. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to be wrapping up now. But I cannot end without asking you to say one word on the number one political topic of the day, restructuring. What would you like to see? If we were, because restructuring means different things to different people. I've seen this everywhere. We cannot finish the talk on politics without saying this restructuring or whatever it is. What is your take on this in 1 minute, please?
So restructuring, I actually almost hate that word now because, as you said, it means
You're
different
the second
things.
person telling me that. Yes, one of my speakers before also disagreed with that word completely. Yeah.
But when anybody says restructuring, I ask them, what do you mean? What do you mean? I lived in the UAE last year for about 8 months. And I say to everybody, take that model. You don't need any form of drawing. Take the UAE model, but I will give you one tweak to it, right?
Yeah.
You have six geopolitical zones.
Correct.
Right? Make them autonomous. Every zone would get its own premier, which is like the prime minister of the zone.
Okay.
Right? And once you have that, so you have the states, they remain as they are with their governors. You remove all the state houses of whatever it is. Then each zone will have its own house of parliament.
Okay.
Which technically shouldn't be more than 25 people.
Okay.
And then you have the premier. Now, on the presidency, you leave the presidency there. So the president, the federal government takes care of defense, army, immigration, and all the things around.
Yeah.
You would say 25% of your income as a region goes to the federal government. There will be no election for president of the federal government. Whoever is premier, so you have a 5-year term for each of the premiers to be president.
Yeah, you just be rotating it.
Yes, you put in your constitution. It will start with northwest, then it will go to southwest, then it will go to northeast, then it will go to south-south. Once you have it like that, whoever is northwest premier will be northwest premier and president of Nigeria.
I see.
It's simple. We don't spend money on unnecessary elections. If the premier dies during his term, the same people will get a new premier, and the guy will be president for the remaining years.
I see.
For the remaining years of his 5, no election needed.
Man, we need to send you to the Constitutional Assembly. I think this is what we've got to do. Mr. Abola, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it. It's been good speaking with you about this. Yeah, well, that's week 17 of the challenge. We're still going to week 20. We have 3 more weeks to go. Please continue to follow this challenge, and who knows, we will have a final debrief before we go. But it's good to have for you to have joined us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.